Hey guys, Script here with another video, and my buddy Dino Reviews posted this on Twitter, and I felt like I needed to comment because there's been always so many debates on Twitter and social media about the politics of Star Wars, and a lot of people seem to put a lot of emphasis on, oh, he was doing modern politics, and he was doing, everything was political, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying that's not wrong to an extent. Certainly it's wrong in terms of a lot of the sort of stuff social politically we're doing now. I don't think George Lucas would be putting certain things in Star Wars movies that are very sort of modern-esque social issues in our society, especially considering like these are supposed to be family movies, and a lot of people that have kids don't want their kids to be exposed to that stuff. So it's kind of a way to lose money, and we've seen that with Disney. I'm not saying it's right or wrong in this video. I'm simply saying you're going to lose money from a lot of people if you do that. That's that simple. So I wanted to show this video because this kind of gives us a better sort of overall picture of what George Lucas is really doing, and it kind of hopefully will open some people's eyes to certain things. It should open sort of everybody's eyes to a certain degree. So let's just listen here, and I'll sort of give my take, and that'll be that.
They use a lot of your language when, Dick Cheney just did it. If somebody's going to have to go over the dark side. What do you feel about that?
Well, I'm making films that are timeless, and they're about issues that have been around for 1,000 years. So the human condition.
Okay, so there you go. So she says, so Carrie says to him, Dick Cheney made the comment that someone's going to have to go over to the dark side. So she says to George, this politician Dick Cheney is referencing Star Wars in the at the time that this interview is taken, the contemporary politics of the day, which I don't know what that had to do with, but who knows. And then George responds to that. He doesn't say, oh, yes, there is that facet of it, and da-da-da-da-da. And again, I'm not saying he doesn't take inspiration from Vietnam and all that stuff, but he doesn't acknowledge that. He says, my number one thing is I'm making movies about concepts that human condition and concepts that go back thousands of years. He's essentially saying, I'm dealing with the bigger picture here. So that's not to say he doesn't incorporate that stuff, but don't lose the forest through the trees, guys. Like, don't focus so much on that, and then so you lose the overarching message that he was trying to send, and the overarching, everlasting human conditional issues that he was trying to bring about.
Hasn't changed too much. Intellectually we've advanced, but emotionally we have not advanced very far. And as a result, the same kind of struggle that each individual human being has to deal with in terms of their, how do they relate to the rest of the world, how do they relate to their society, how do they relate to their family, how do they relate to themselves, is a big issue, and it always will be.
So there you go. So he's dealing with the individual, and it's not to say there aren't political things and things going on around them, but he's dealing with issues within ourselves. How we deal with issues, the human condition. And like he says, that hasn't changed. That's really, historically, history just repeats itself over and over and over in terms of politics and wars and issues and things of that nature. But the people still have to deal with it. The conditions are still there. So they have to deal with making decisions. That's what Star Wars is all about. That's why he always says it's kind of like a soap opera in a lot of ways, because you're dealing with the characters. And the character development is what matters, not some outside political thing. That can be there, and you can draw inspiration from that, and he does in his stories, but the stories are really about the characters and how they deal with timeless human issues. So if you want to watch Star Wars and be like, oh, this is so good because it's talking about the US being the Empire and Vietnam being the rebels, well, you're just like, you're watching it through like such a pinhole, and you're missing the big picture completely. And you're supposed to watch it and see yourself in the characters and say, hey, how would I react to these issues? You're not supposed to sit there and be like, oh, this is the US versus Vietnam. Go, Vietnam, go! Like, that's just what George was inspired by in terms of creating the Empire and creating the rebels. It doesn't mean that's what his story is about.
It doesn't change. And what makes somebody good? What makes somebody evil? And what is good and what is evil?
What makes somebody good? What makes somebody evil? That's what his stories are about. I've been talking for a long time that since Disney has purchased the IP, they've sort of worked their way to this situation where they're sort of creating more gray areas. You look at Andor, right? They're trying to create sort of sympathetic villains and sort of making the rebels kind of bad in a way, and they're trying to create this gray area, and there's a lot of implied quotes from interviews and stuff that they're going to sort of do that with the Acolyte and kind of work towards sort of a gray Jedi. They've kind of almost hinted at that with the new Rey movie as well, and even the Dawn of the Jedi movie they're going to do. And that's not what George's vision was, guys. I'm sorry. It was good and evil, and there's good and evil in everybody, and what are you going to do about it, and how are you going to react to it, and what decisions are you going to make? That's what his stories were about. I'm sorry and I hate to say this, but a lot of you younger folks, I'm not even that old, I'm 40, but you younger folks seem to think that it's all about like gray areas, and no, like that wasn't Star Wars. So you can like new Star Wars, but Star Wars has been changed and is continuing to change into something that it never was. It's something totally different. And that's okay for some people. I'm not hating on you for feeling that way, but that's reality. This is coming from George Lucas's mouth. And when you watch the first 6 movies, that's what you get. You don't get gray areas. Anakin, don't go bad. If you go bad, this is going to happen, and it does.
And for young people and for telling mythological kinds of stories, those get delineated very clearly.
So, what does he say? In young people, this is something very clear, that the message that I'm sending, that there's good and evil in everybody, and we have to make decisions. And morality, this is the big one, guys. I hope you're still listening. Morality is not ambiguous. That's the message they're trying to send now. Oh, well, morality is just relative, whatever you want it to be. That's literally why, totalitarian regimes rose, because people justified killing other people because it was for the greater good. Because, morality, what George is saying is these stories are about good and evil. And actually, in terms of what I just said, think of the Empire. They manipulated people and people's morality into thinking murdering all the Jedi was okay. That's literally basic stuff, and he says, he references mythology, and that's the key to mythology, and that's where Star Wars is going off the rails now, is you can't write good mythology without pretty solidly defined lines. Now, that's not to say that characters within that universe and within those defined lines can't change and can't go back and forth and make decisions therein, but you can't change the defined evil and good in fantasy and in mythology and write good stories. And so if they're going to change what the Force is, and it's not going to be, balance isn't going to be light and doing good, and they're going to change it to where, oh no, it's okay, kill that guy for the greater good, even if it's not in self-defense, kind of if they go down that road, it's going to be the absolute end of Star Wars, and it's already dying anyway. So there you go. That's the end. That's what I've been trying to explain to people for a really long time. You can't really do it on Twitter. That's the reality. So again, I go back to the very beginning, guys. Don't lose the Force through the trees. Understand that it's okay to acknowledge current political things inspiring certain aspects of the environment the characters are in, but don't lose the reality that it's all about those characters and the good and evil within them, and how they react to situations, and whether or not they're going to go and decide to be evil like Anakin did, or they're going to go and decide to be good like Luke did, okay? That's what this is about, and if we change that, I don't think the stories are going to be good. Again, if you like that, sure, have at her, but that's not Star Wars. End of story from George's own mouth. If you like this content, guys, please like and subscribe. It always helps the channel. If you'd like to, check out any of my other content on my channel, and have yourselves a really good day.